All right. Hello, everybody on Instagram. I am also going live on Facebook. That will take me just a moment. So let me get all of my ducks in a row and then we will begin today's live satsang. So hang on just a moment, admitting everybody. So I'm actually live on Zoom as well. So for those who are in my academies, the Kaivalya Yoga Method Academy, for those of you that are in the Upward Facing Business Academy, for those of you that are in the Higher Education.yoga membership, for those of you that are in the Kaivalya Yoga Method Academy, you have the ability to join me live on Zoom, which means we can all see each other, we can hang out, but I am also broadcasting to Facebook and Instagram just to make sure everybody gets, as much as possible out of this goodness, which is the live full moon satsang that we are here to do today and enjoy. So as always, I have my super janky setup. I am in my bedroom. That is my clothes hamper. It's so hard to figure out how to, I can't see what the camera is going to show until I show up on Zoom. So it's always a surprise. I have set my books up for you real nice. I've got a little altar here. So I have taken care of the space. It's very important to cultivate a sacred space. All right. I think that we are live everywhere. When I do this on my own, it's always a very exciting process to try and manage all of the moving parts that go on in this experience. So thanks for bearing with me, you guys. I am super stoked to be here with you. I think everything is pretty well set. Fingers crossed. So if you can see me and hear me on Instagram, give me a thumbs up. If you can see me and hear me on Zoom, put something in the chat that you can see me and hear me. Or yeah, give me a thumbs up for those of you that are on. Awesome. That are on video. I love that. Welcome. Welcome to the satsang, everybody. I'm honored and pleased to be here with you. This is something that I've been doing for a little bit of time, I think the last 2 months or so, ever since we've been in this situation during this pandemic. I know that, it's been a really challenging experience for all of us, and a satsang is a really great way to get together and to support each other. So I want to give you just a little bit of a background in case this is your first experience with me at a satsang. This is something that I have loved doing my entire yoga career. So I've been leading and hosting satsangs for, I don't know, 15, 20 years or something. And it was one of the first things that I fell in love with. So my very first yoga teacher back in Colorado, where I grew up and where I started teaching, he used to host satsang on Sunday mornings. And the first time I saw it on the schedule, I thought it was another fun form of yoga. Like, oh, is it going to be like power yoga? No. Turns out satsang is mantra, meditation, and inspiration. And it's an opportunity for us to come together as a community. The word Sat means truth and Sang means attachment. So it's a community of people who are essentially attached to the highest version of truth. This is a community of people who are like-minded, who all want to come together for the greater good, who all are in pursuit of living their lives with more joy, with more compassion, with more kindness, in alignment with the principles of yoga and the philosophy that we all love so much. So, those are the kind of people that I want to hang out with. They're likely the kind of people that you want to hang out with too. So we are all here. This is our opportunity to be together in this space. And in years past, I've often done satsangs on full and new moons because I'm also an astrologer. And it's our opportunity to harness whatever natural energies are happening at the moment. Whether or not you study astrology, that's fine. These energies are occurring, might as well take advantage of them. And even if, astrology isn't your thing, it's still an opportunity for us to focus our intentions, to focus on something specifically, to work on, to cultivate, to let go. And during full moon times, that is our best opportunity to let go, okay? So full moons are designed for us to release, and new moons are designed for us to take in. So those are the general breakdowns. And then the flavors of the full and new moons are always determined by what sign they fall in, all right? So an Aries new moon is going to have a very different flavor than what we have today, which is a Scorpio full moon. So do we have any Scorpios in the house? there is a disproportionate number of Scorpios because 9 months before Scorpio season is Valentine's Day. So there are more Scorpios in Western countries that celebrate Valentine's Day than there are anywhere else, which I think is kind of hilarious. So y'all outnumber the rest of us. And so this full moon has a Scorpio flavor. So what I wanted to do was go through a little bit of what this means for us, what we as yoga practitioners and spiritual leaders can focus on, and especially how it's relevant to our experience now, okay? What we are experiencing now, this pandemic, social distancing, sheltering in place, a lot of uncertainty. It's a very difficult time for everybody, right? I think that oftentimes in spiritual circles, communities, there is a tendency to shine a happier light sometimes, or to stick our heads in the sand and not pay attention to the negative. We can't do that right now. And anytime we try and deny the reality of what is happening, we suffer. So we want to have our eyes open to everything that's going on, of course, looking at the silver linings, of course, cultivating the positive. But I don't want us to miss the opportunity that challenges often bring us, okay? These are our points of greatest growth. And I know that that sucks. For lack of a more eloquent way to put that, it kind of sucks. It kind of sucks that our opportunities for the biggest growth often come when we are the most challenged. Now, I led a satsang with all of you, I think it would have been about a month ago now, maybe 6 weeks ago. So you can look in the archives on Facebook to find that. But I led a satsang a while back where I was talking about how, you know, we all have experienced challenge already in our lifetime, right? Prior to this, I mean, you all have experienced tough times. I know that because you're human. And I know that you've all gotten through those difficult times because you all are here. So there is something in you, there is an ability within you to withstand discomfort, to weather uncertainty, to actually be with the unknown. And what we can benefit from is learning to let go of our resistance to those things, all right? Often we don't want to be with the discomfort. We don't want to hang out with the unknown, even though that is what's happening now. And for those of you that know me, you know that that's my absolute favorite mantra, above and beyond the Sanskrit mantras that I also love. This is what's happening now is my favorite mantra. This is what's happening now. We are experiencing challenge. We are experiencing uncertainty. We will suffer far less if we accept what is happening now and learn to be with the state of discomfort in a comfortable way, to be with uncertainty in a certain way. And there is a technique to do that, right? There is a technique to do that. So one of the things I wanted to discuss today, of course, are themes around Scorpio, because that's what's happening now in the full moon. There is a Scorpio full moon, and talk about how we can do this as spiritual practitioners. And actually, normally in a satsang, I would go through more of like a kirtan mantra with you, but I thought it would be very helpful today to go through a yoga sutra with you, because why not? There happens to be one that's really relevant and pertinent to what I wanted to discuss today. So we'll give that the good old college try. So Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, right? Scorpio is the zodiac sign, and Pluto is the planet that really expresses what that zodiac sign stands for and what it means. Pluto, of course, is the god of the underworld, the god of death. In our yogic mythology, the equivalent would be Shiva. So this is a very Shiva type of energy. Shiva has often gotten a very bad rap, as has Pluto. Nobody really wants to be Pluto's best friend. Maybe that's why he was relegated to the underworld. It's difficult for us to accept, to love, to be with death. It's difficult for us to get cozy and comfortable with that as a part of life. This is a very big part of our reality right now. To be frank, people do die. They do during any time. I lost my father on February 1st. these things occur. They happen. It is a natural part of life. We are experiencing an uptick in this natural part of life, which is death, something that some of us may be confronted with very head on, something that our colleagues or our students may be very confronted with head on. And I have to be honest and say that as Americans, we're kind of crap at dealing with death. We don't really know how to be comfortable with it. We don't really know how to hang out with it. We don't know how to accept it. And I've observed this just from my own life as an American, having had death at certain points in time around me. You may have observed something different. But what I want us to do, especially as spiritual leaders, is at least work our way to a sense of acceptance towards death, which also means an acceptance of letting go, of release, an acceptance of change. Change is truly the only constant in the universe. And these are all things that Shiva embodies. Shiva absolutely takes on this challenging role that is a natural part of our universe and is often blamed for it, is often unloved for it, is often overlooked for it, when in reality, if we were to embrace the essence that exists within us of Shiva, this ability to change, transform, to let go, we would actually be more comfortable in uncomfortable situations. We would actually be more accepting of our lives as they are. And when we can do that, it allows us to, number one, stay in the present moment, which is the only moment that yoga occurs in. And number two, find joy, even in the most difficult situations. There are ways to find joy even during challenge. I believe that when we can find joy during our most challenging circumstances, they are the most joyful experiences we can have. So leave it to me to talk about the tough stuff, right? But again, if we're not talking about this, we're ignoring it. And if we're ignoring it, we're not facing reality. If we're not facing reality, we're suffering. I'm here to do my best to help alleviate suffering. So are you. That is the role of the spiritual leader. Now, that's not all that Scorpio does, right? Scorpio isn't just all about, death and dying and letting go. Scorpio is also about going inward. Because the success in letting go and thriving during challenge and change comes with us facing our own shadow. We can't really get close to discomfort and be comfortable in the discomfort if we have resistance to the parts of ourselves that we haven't faced yet. So Scorpio loves shadow work. Scorpio loves to be doing depth psychological work. Scorpio loves to be triggered. When not used correctly, that energy can be destructive. So if we're triggered in a Scorpio type of energy and we don't use it for shadow work, we don't use it to embrace the change, what happens is we often lash out in anger toward others. I don't know about you, but I've been doing this a lot lately. Anybody else? This is just a very triggering time, right? And I don't care how enlightened we think we are. I don't care how much yoga we've done. We're human. We all have triggers. Things are going to trigger us. And I'm human too. It's been happening to me. I had an incident this last weekend that I found myself completely spun out over. And then a few days later, I was able to look back and think to myself, my goodness, that was not a thing that warranted that level of emotional response. When that occurs, when our emotional response is beyond what's really warranted based on the situation, that's how we know we're triggered. That's how we know this is something inside of us that is resisting reality. And that's a perfect Scorpio moment to go inward and do the shadow work. to do the work of hypnosis, to do the work of yoga, to do the work of deep meditation, to do the work of journaling, to do some of the practices I outline in my book, Yoga Beyond the Mat, particularly the practice of changing your mind, which I took you all through, I believe, in the last Satsang that I did. So these are our opportunities. Now, what I wanted to go through in terms of the Yoga Sutra that I promised you is why it is that we suffer, okay? And I'm saying that, yes, this idea of the resistance of letting go, the resistance to change, the resistance to dying, and it doesn't have to be an actual death. It can be the death of our old way of life, the death of our old normal, the death of our old career, the death of seeing people without masks, the death of being able to just hug people without fear. We're having to let go of a lot of our reality that was our reality just moments ago and adjust to something very new. And we're being asked to do it very quickly. And this can be very difficult for all of us. It causes discomfort because we want our comfort zone. We want the things that make us comfortable around us at all times. But that's just not going to happen, you know? So there are things in yoga called the kleshas. How many of you have heard of the kleshas? So for those of you with me on Zoom, you can raise your hand. Okay, great. So the kleshas appear in the Yoga Sutra. The kleshas there are 5 of them, and they are the obstacles to us understanding ourselves in a state of yoga all the time, right? So yoga would tell us that yoga is your normal, yoga is who you are, yoga is your natural state. That is essentially what the very first Yoga Sutra tells us, Atha Yoganushāsanam. Yoga is here and now. If you were to just be in the here and now, you would be experiencing a state of yoga. Yoga is a psycho-spiritual state. It's a state of psychology and a state of spirituality. It's both. It's a state where all the parts of our psyche are entirely unified, where we can get access to the higher information from our supra consciousness, where we can gain access to the wisdom of our unconscious, which is where the triggers lie. When we have a fluid flow of communication between all the parts of our psyche, we experience a state of yoga, which allows us to navigate the crazy shit happening in the world with relative ease. Who thinks that would be an awesome idea? To navigate the craziness of I'm getting a lot of this. Yes. So if we could just navigate the crazy stuff that's happening in the world with a sense of grace and ease, wouldn't that make us feel better? Wouldn't that make us feel better about whatever situation is happening? Wouldn't we then be more equipped to serve wholeheartedly if we are in a state of grace and ease? Yes, of course we would. So what we want to do is recognize these kleshas and recognize how to overcome these obstacles that prevent us from being in this state of yoga, this state of grace and ease all the time. Okay, so I promise you the kleshas are numbered to 5. So number 1 is avidya. Vidya means light. Avidya means lack of light. So this one is just the misunderstanding of us as something other than our highest selves, or our soul, or our Atman, or source, whatever name you want to put on that. We are all, or even divine beings. If you don't recognize the light in you every time you look in the mirror, if you're not seeing that all the time, that's avidya. That's a pretty common state for us to be in. We identify more with our egos. We identify more with, our small selves. We say, oh, this is just the way I am. If you've ever said that, that is a huge avidya statement. It is not just the way you are. The way you are is supreme divine consciousness. Anything other than that is absolutely, completely malleable and changeable. Good to know. The second klesha is asmita. Asmita is merely egoism. Not egotism, right? Doesn't mean that we're all arrogant or egotistical. It literally just means the presence of an ego. If you have an ego, you have asmita. If you are a human adult, you have an ego. Again, I don't care how enlightened you are. And the problem isn't the ego itself. The problem is how attached to it you are. One of the best questions I like to ask myself and pose to students as well, and ask frequently is, do I want to be right or do I want to be free? Okay. This is a question that's going to help us navigate fairly quickly through challenges. Because if our ego is in charge, if our ego is trying to push forward, we are desperately going to want to be right. But as soon as we can soften the ego's hold and just use who we are, use that ego to navigate the situation freely, then we're going to opt for freedom as opposed to rightness. So it's not about dismantling or destroying the ego. I don't recommend that. It's simply about loosening the ego's hold on us and making it more transparent. One of the best tools we have for that, folks, is meditation. So that's why meditation is such a prominent part of yoga. Okay, avidya, just not knowing that we are divine, inspired beings. Asmita, merely having an ego, which can get in our way. Kleshas 3 and 4 go together. Raga and dvesha. Okay, so raga is the attachment to pleasure. Dvesha is the aversion to pain. Boy, are we experiencing this right now. We attach ourselves to pleasure. We want to go back to the things that made us pleasurable, that were pleasurable 2 months ago. I want to go back to not wearing a face mask every time I go outside. Anybody else? I want to go back to hugging people freely. I want to go back to being able to go outside and go to places that I love. I want to go out with my friends. I want to go to dinner. I'm sure that you all do too. We are trying to attach ourselves to the things that were pleasurable, and when we do that, we suffer. Being attached to things that are pleasurable always equates with suffering because we can't ever get that pleasure back again. We get it once in a beautiful way, and then we need to let it go. Dvesha is the aversion to pain. It's also happening a lot right now. There's a lot of fear going on at this time, which is understandable, right? This is a challenging experience. And we're trying to push away the pain as much as possible. We're trying to not look at the things that are painful. We're trying to keep our heads in the sand. We want to skim over it. We don't want to talk about it. We want it to just end as fast as possible, almost like we've pushed the pause button and everything's going to be exactly as it was when we push play again. That's going to cause us to suffer. Anytime we push away the pain and don't accept it as a part of our reality, we are going to suffer. General rule here is anytime we argue with reality, suffering happens. Anytime we accept reality, we are free. I'll say that again. Anytime we argue with reality, suffering happens. Anytime we accept reality, we are free. Freedom is a state of yoga. That's why that's important. So, avidya, not seeing ourselves as luminous beings. Asmita, the function of having an ego that is far too in control. Raga and dvesha, the attachment to pleasure, the aversion to pain. And then finally, we have abhinivesha. Abhinivesha is the fear of death. And it is said, I think incorrectly so, and I'll explain why, but it is said that the fear of death is the greatest fear. It's the root of all fears. It's the thing that stops us in our tracks. If you were to extrapolate any fear that we have, it can be rooted in the fear of death. You'll find that death is the worst thing. But I want to tell you a story, okay, about why this is inaccurate. Now, I know Patanjali said it 2,000 years ago. I know we generally think of the Yoga Sutras as gold, but I'll tell you what, that book was written 2,000 years ago. They didn't have all the information. We have a little bit more information now. We're going to add to it, and we're going to adjust with our modern minds what we now understand about how the psyche works, okay? And that's fine. We can do that. So Patanjali said abhinivesha, fear of death, is the worst thing ever. Now, I was at the Kripalu Institute teaching an adjustments course with a bunch of students, and this was probably 10 years ago now. And I was teaching about the kleshas and the fear of death, because that's often what gets people caught up in fear of trying crow pose. That was the context, right? Trying to get people to help others up in the crow pose. And of course, people are afraid of crow pose because they're afraid they're going to fall on their face. And what's the worst thing that happens if they fall on their face? They could die. I've never had anybody die in crow pose, but that's how the fear of death works. It just makes things bigger than they are. So I was saying all this, and one of my brave students raised his hand. His name is Joe Kitta. And he said, Alanna, he said, I hate to disagree with you, but I disagree with you. And I was like, really? Tell me more about that, Joe. So he said, I went through an experiment right after 9/11, when I saw and recognized how fearful people were of living. I wanted to understand why. And so I went ahead and did all the things that scared me, just to see if they were really that bad. So he went through an improv course and did a stand-up comedy routine, which his wife, who was there at the retreat with us, said wasn't that funny, but he survived and was fine. He learned to skydive, which helped him overcome his fear of heights. He actually hired an aging circus performer, a knife thrower, strapped him to a board, and this guy threw knives at him, and he has a scar on his head where the guy missed a little bit. Now, this is true, you guys. I have this all in my book, Yoga Beyond the Mat. It is true. It is documented. It happened. This guy actually did these things. He did 10 different things. He wrote his own book about it. But he said, here's the thing, all right? He lives in Pennsylvania, and in Pennsylvania, there were I believe it was the Quaker community that actually created solitary confinement. We have solitary confinement in our prison system because it was created in this community in Pennsylvania. And the idea for this community, and I believe it was a Quaker community, please feel free to correct me if I got that incorrect. But they were conical structures, like big cones that you would sit in. They would put these people in, and at the top was a little bit of hole for the light to come in, and they called that the light of God. So if the light of God could come in and shine upon this solo person to try and hopefully illuminate whatever it was this person needed to think about or consider. Okay, so he said he was afraid of being alone. So he arranged for, I believe, 7 days in this solitary confinement, and he was stoked about it. He's like, awesome, I'm gonna get a lot of meditation done. I won't have to answer my email. This is great. He had arranged for regular deliveries of food so he wouldn't starve, and everything was gonna be okay, right? He couldn't make it past the first day. Of all of the things that he did that scared the heck out of him, it was the isolation, it was the being alone that he could not take, and he had to get out of there. And he said to me, Alanna, he said, the thing that we fear most is not death. The thing that we fear most is disconnection. Now, 10 years ago, that hit me in the heart, you know, and it just became so obvious when he said it. Look, death is scary, sure. But we all have belief structures that allow us to commune with the dead posthumously. I think if those were not in place, perhaps the fear of death would be the biggest fear. But I know that my dad is here watching me. I know that my grandparents are here watching me. I know that I can talk to them. I know they live on in my heart. These are just things that I know. And maybe you know similar things or know them in a slightly different way. But it's the disconnection piece that gets us. And I think that is what is sending us over the edge with this pandemic. Because the ways in which we have normally connected with our fellow human beings are in question or unavailable. And the normal way, the comfortable way that we use to connect is not applicable or available right now for good reason, for safety reason. And it's the disconnection that's causing us fear. It's the disconnection that's creating the anxiety, the depression, the apathy, the boredom. It's the disconnection that is at the source of any fear, any discomfort that we are having right now. So forget about the attachment to pleasure, the aversion to fear, raga and dvesha. Forget about your ego. Forget about your avidya. Those are like small potatoes compared to the biggest klesha of all, the biggest thing that keeps us from feeling a sense of yoga, a sense of connection. Yoga is connection. It's connection between all the parts of our psyche. It's knowing that we're a part of something bigger than us. Disconnection is antithetical to that state of yoga. That state of yoga that will make us feel as if we are in grace and freedom, no matter what is going on around us. Let me ask you a question. I know the answer, but we're going to see. Would it be possible for you to rise to this challenge that is happening now, this pandemic that is happening now, if you knew unequivocally without doubt that you are not alone? Would it be easier? Raise your hand. If you knew that you are not alone, that we are here with you, would it be easier to go through this with grace? All the people who are on video with me all have raised their hands, just so you know. That poll went exactly like I thought it would. So our most important work during this full moon in Scorpio is to let go of everything that makes us feel disconnected. The attachment to our old way of being will make us feel disconnected. The attachment to our old normal will make us feel disconnected. Wanting to be right about what we think, about what should happen next, what should happen now, will make us feel disconnected. And lean in to what connects us. The first place we do that is within ourselves. I know that might sound cliche, but I am a yoga teacher, right? This is where we go. We go inside. We go inside because the whole universe is in here. When we can feel connected to ourselves, we find it much easier to connect to others. The other most obvious and important practice is exactly what we are doing right now. Satsang. Satsang is the most important practice for alleviating the sense of disconnection. Because satsang not only helps you to connect to yourself, because what we're doing here is contemplating the highest truth, which is within all of us, we're doing it together. So amazingly, you have the tools to know that you are not alone, to feel connected. And it's just an attention, a greater attention to those tools that will allow you to feel more a sense of grace and ease. So turning your attention to this connection, turning your attention to connecting to yourself, letting go, again, shedding that very Scorpio maneuver, letting go of what you might otherwise be attached to, is the order of the day. That is what this full moon is asking us to do. That is what this period in time is asking us to do. I'm not saying there won't be mourning involved, but mourning is a process of acceptance. Grieving is a process of acceptance. Trying to resist that is not a process of acceptance. So we're going to chant this sutra. And then we're going to hang out with it for a minute. So I don't know if all of you can hear the harmonium, but I am now playing the harmonium, which is right here. And we'll just do call and response style. Very simple. So you'll hear me say a word in Sanskrit, which are all the words that I've just explained. And then you'll repeat it back. And as we say these words in Sanskrit, as we chant this sutra, I want us to do it with the spirit of letting go. Letting go of the idea that we are anything other than divine. Letting go of wanting to be right over wanting to be free. Letting go of our discomfort in favor of accepting what is, being comfortable with all of the things that are challenging. Letting go of the idea that we are not alone. Because right now, as we chant, we do it together. We are here together. Avidya. Repeat. Avidya. Asmita. Your turn. Asmita. Raga. Raga. Svesha. Vesha. Abhinivesha. Abhinivesha. Kleshaha. Kleshaha. Avidya smita. Avidya smita. Raga tvesha. Raga tvesha. Abhinivesha kleshaha. Abhinivesha kleshaha. One more time. Avidya smita. Avidya smita. Raga tvesha. Raga tvesha. Abhinivesha kleshaha. Abhinivesha kleshaha. Place your right hand over your heart. And say the sound of Om together 3 times. Keep the eyes closed. Maintain a comfortable seat if you do not already have one. Come to a comfortable seat with the eyes closed for a moment of meditation. Tune into the breath. Feel the breath at the tip of the nose as it enters the nostrils. Feel the breath as it slides down the back of the throat and into the lungs. Feel the breath move from the lungs, up the throat, and out the nose. And merely watch as the breath breathes you. As we cultivate this safe space here together, let us practice letting go. Move your awareness into a part of the body where you feel resistance. When you consider your current situation, the current scenario, when you consider today, your life, where in the physical body do you feel any resistance to what is happening now? You might feel the resistance as a sense of tightening in the throat, butterflies in the stomach, difficulty taking a deep breath, challenges thinking clearly. Don't try to swat away this resistance or ignore it. This is a safe space to merely notice its presence in the physical body. Wherever you feel this sense of resistance now, place your hand on that location of the body. No need to figure anything out. No need to understand it. Just honor and accept it. Now, ask this resistance what you need to know. Ask this resistance what you need to learn at this time. Let your body give you a message. The message might be simple. The message might be a phrase that you hear. It might be words that you see in your mind's eye. It might be a physical sensation. The message will come in the form that is most understandable to you. Our resistance teaches us where we are not yet free. Our resistance shows us why we feel alone. Our resistance informs us of where we are still separated. And our resistance provides us the pathway to grace, freedom, joy. Breathe into the message that you have received. Notice how you feel now. Notice if the sensation of resistance has changed, dissipated, expanded, shifted in some way. Without any expectation, there's no need to figure anything out. Simply notice. Begin to take deep breaths into the places in the body that call for breath, prana. Bring your hands to prayer at your heart and bow your head slightly in gratitude to that part of you, that wise part of you that showed you both resistance as well as the message, the way out today. Communing with these other parts of yourself is yoga. Place your right hand over your heart. Close out our satsang and our meditation today with the sound of Om once again. Take a deep breath in. Om. Feel the vibrations. It was absolutely my pleasure to be here with you today, everybody. We ran a little longer than intended, so for those of you in the Kaivalya Yoga Method Academy, I am popping over in a moment to do Q&A over there with you guys, which I do every week. In the meantime, thank you all for joining me here, whether you're coming from the Kaivalya Yoga Method Academy, the Modern Mystics Academy, the Upward Facing Business Academy, or the Higher Education.Yoga membership, or whether you're just joining me on social media. It's my great honor and pleasure to be here with you. I hope that the topic of this satsang was helpful and supportive for you at this time. I hope that you learned a little something that you can carry forward with you in your own daily life, but also in your teaching and your outreach with your students as a spiritual leader. That's really what I'm here to do, is to help support you in your spiritual leadership and to help you take your spiritual leadership to the next level. I have always been here for you. I am here for you, and I will continue to be here for you. You guys, you are not alone. You are not alone. And at any point during this experience with this challenge that we are having, that is being presented right now, you are feeling that sense of loneliness. I hope I've given you a tool or two today to combat that. But at the very least, join us here. Join us here. It's a place where you know that you are not alone, and we will remind you of that, and we will support you in that, and we will be here for you. So whether it's here on the satsangs or in my groups, you have a wonderful community that has your back no matter what you're going through. All right, you guys, I love you very much. I hope that you have a wonderful Thursday. Embrace the beautiful energy of this Scorpio full moon. Take it on as a means of letting go of the stuff that no longer serves us, of keeping yourself in the present moment, now and here, which is where yoga is, which is where you will feel a sense of grace and ease moving through your life, no matter what. All right, everybody. Take care. Thank you so much, and I'll be back soon for more. Namaste.